PTSD. That's the label they stick on it now. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Sounds so tidy, clinical, like something you catch from a bad water buffalo. Back then, we didn't have the fancy degrees or the manuals. We just called it being haunted. And Lord knows, I've got more ghosts than a damn cemetery. Most of them have names. Faces I see plain as day when I close my eyes. Faces of buddies, faces of others. But the first ghost, the one that really sunk its teeth in and never let go, wasn't a person. It was a place. Nui Than. May of '65. That, my friend, was my formal introduction to Hell's front porch. Why'd I even go? Well, I was 20. Thought I was tough. Got that letter from Uncle Sam. Greetings, it said. Next thing I knew, I was on a bus to Columbia, South Carolina, packed in with a bunch of other scared kids. A sergeant, all spit and polish, barked out, "Any of you want to be Marines?" My hand went up. Wasn't many of us, just a handful. See, my best friend from high school, Dennis Michael, good kid from Vacaville, California. He was a Marine. Got himself killed in Hughes City that February, '68. Or, well, for Nui Than timeline, let's just say he got it earlier, because that anger was fresh when I signed. My young, dumb, 20-year-old brain figured, I'm gonna go over there and get the bastards who got Dennis. Stupid. I know now. War ain't about settling scores. It's about surviving, and mostly about watching parts of yourself die. We landed at Chu Lai, our boots hitting that foreign sand. Marines, most of us. 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines. The professionals, they tried to call us. More like the greenhorns. Green as the damn triple canopy jungle that was waiting to swallow us whole. I was barely 20, like I said, full of that piss and vinegar they say young men are made of. Thought I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Stepped off that C-130, and the heat lord, the heat just slapped you in the face like a wet, fiery towel. The air was so thick with humidity, you could practically wring it out of your fatigues after 5 minutes. It was like stepping into a steam bath somebody forgot to turn off, mixed with the lovely perfume of jet fuel, salt, and a kind of damp, rotten earth smell I'd get to know too well. Our unit, we humped it a few clicks inland. Found ourselves near this ugly little pimple of a hill they called Nui Than. Started setting up what was supposed to be a firebase. Looking back, it was a piss-poor excuse for one. Sandbags, filled with that damn sticky, blood-red dirt that got into everything. Your M14, your ski rations, under your fingernails, in your damn teeth. Concertina wire strung out in lazy, haphazard loops that looked more like a drunkard's attempt at knitting than a real defense. Foxholes dug into that stubborn red clay, never deep enough, never felt safe enough. We were still finding our feet, see? Still half thinking this might be some kind of screwed-up Boy Scout. Jamboree with live ammo. Idiots. Every last one of us. Clueless. The days, a monotonous blur of heat, sweat, and a soul-grinding boredom, punctuated by moments of stark, bowel-loosening terror you tried like hell to forget as soon as they passed. Patrols, mostly. Short ones, long ones. Little sweeps out into the bush, into that triple canopy hell where the shadows played tricks on your eyes. Looking for? Well, hell, we weren't entirely sure what we were looking for half the time. Victor Charlie, the sergeants called him. The VC, Ghosts in the Green. Sometimes you'd hear stories from other outfits, whispers of ambushes, of men just vanishing on patrol, of booby traps that'd take a leg or your life before you even knew you'd stepped wrong. But it was all abstract, like stories from a book, until it happened to you or the guy next to you. But sometimes, though, sometimes you'd feel it. Like 1,000 unseen eyes drilling into your back when you were hacking your way through elephant grass so tall it'd swallow a man whole and twice as mean with its razor edges. A rustle in the tree line that wasn't the wind, a branch snapping when nothing should have been there to snap it. That kind of quiet that ain't natural. The kind that prickles the hair on your neck and makes your gut clench up tighter than a miser's fist. The jungle had its own symphony, a never-ending, ear-splitting buzz and screech of insects and birds. But when it went dead silent, that's when you knew. That's when the bottom dropped out of your stomach and your asshole puckered. Something was out there, watching, waiting. My buddy, Miller, good kid from some farm town in Iowa, always had a joke ready, bless his heart. Always trying to lighten the mood, even when things were grim as a preacher at a pig roast. He'd say stuff like, "Mac, this place is hotter than a $2 pistol on a Saturday night." Or, "Humidity's so thick, the damn mosquitoes are carrying canteens and demanding refills." He'd get a weak chuckle out of us, even when we felt like we were being slow cooked in our own skins, marinated in our own sweat and dread. Garcia, another kid in my squad from some dusty little town in Arizona, he was always jumpy. Skinny kid, eyes like a startled deer, always darting around. Kept saying he felt like we were being watched constantly, that the trees themselves had eyes and were just waiting for us to make a mistake. We all kinda laughed it off, called him paranoid, told him to chill, that he was seeing spooks where there weren't any. But deep down, way down in that cold little knot in your gut, I reckon we all felt it. That constant nagging unease. That primal sense that something was coiled up in the dark. Patient, watching, just waiting for the right moment to uncoil and strike. It was like holding your breath for hours, waiting for a thunderclap you just knew, was coming. Sergeant Peterson, he was our platoon sergeant. Old school. Hard as woodpecker lips but fair, if you pulled your weight and didn't screw the pooch too bad. He'd seen action in Korea, had that look in his eyes, that 1,000-yard stare that told you he'd walk through hell and come out the other side. But maybe not all of him had made it back. He knew the score. He knew what this jungle, what this war, could do to young men full of more piss and vinegar than sense. He kept telling us, his voice like gravel and cigarette smoke, "Stay alert, boys. Keep your heads on a swivel. Eyes open, weapons clean and ready. This ain't no goddamn picnic. Complacency kills out here. It'll get you dead faster than a bullet with your name on it." We'd nod, trying to look like we understood, like we were seasoned, salty dogs ready for anything. But how could we? We were kids playing soldier, dressed up in our daddy's hand-me-down courage. We hadn't truly seen the elephant yet. Not really. We hadn't smelled its fetid breath or felt its massive shadow fall heavy and cold over us. That night, May 26th, I think it was. Could have been the 27th. The damn dates get fuzzy after all these years, like looking through smoke glass after a fire. But the feeling of that night that's branded on me, seared into my brain. Dark as the inside of a crypt dug on a moonless night. No moon, no stars, just that suffocating, oppressive blackness and the damn cicadas. God, the cicadas. Buzzing like high-voltage wires, shorting out, a constant piercing, mind-numbing thrum that got inside your skull and scraped at your sanity. I was on watch with Miller, crouched in a shallow, hastily dug foxhole on the southwest perimeter of our sorry excuse for a firebase. My M14, old reliable, rested across my knees, its steel cool and somehow comforting against my sweaty palms. You get tired, see? Bone tired. The kind of exhaustion that seeps into your marrow, makes your eyelids feel like they're weighted down with lead. But the adrenaline, that nervous, gut-gnawing energy, it keeps you wired. Your eyes straining to see something, anything, in that suffocating ink. Every shadow looked like a crouching man. Every gust of wind through the razor grass sounded like approaching footsteps. Your imagination becomes your worst enemy in the dark out there. "Quiet tonight," Miller whispered, his voice barely audible over the damn cicadas. More to himself than to me, I think. Trying to convince himself, maybe. Too damn quiet. He wasn't wrong. It was the kind of silence that screams danger. The kind that precedes a hurricane, when the air gets heavy and still, and the whole world seems to hold its breath. The jungle held its breath that night, and so did we, waiting. Then, WMP. A sound like a giant, unseen door slamming shut way off in the dark, but close enough, deep enough, to make your heart jump clean up into your throat and stick there, choking you. It echoed, a deep, menacing, gut-churning thud that vibrated right through the ground and up your spine, followed almost instantly by a streak of angry red light arcing through the black sky, a malevolent comet coming right for us, trailing sparks like an evil firefly. Incoming. Miller screamed, his voice cracking, all the Iowa farm boy humor gone in that one instant, replaced by pure, naked terror. He dove for the bottom of the foxhole, trying to make himself part of the dirt. The world just exploded. Not like in the movies, all clean and dramatic with a big orange fireball and guys flying neatly through the air. No, this was dirt, rocks, red clay, razor-sharp shrapnel, and the acrid, biting, metallic stench of cordite filling the air, choking you, burning your nostrils, making your eyes water. My ears were ringing like a damn church bell being hammered by a lunatic with a sledge. It was a physical blow, that concussion, even from a near miss. It rattled your teeth, scrambled your brains, punched the air from your lungs. Before we could even process that first goddamn mortar round, all hell truly, definitively, broke loose. It felt like it was coming from 3 sides at once, a coordinated symphony of death. AK-47s started chattering their deadly song from the tree line, not more than 100 yards out. A sound you never, ever forget. Like an angry swarm of giant metallic hornets buzzing with pure, unadulterated hate. Distinct from our M14s, sharper, faster, somehow more vicious, more personal. And then the shouts, high-pitched, guttural in a language I didn't understand, but the meaning was crystal goddamn clear. Zhang Fong, Zhang Len. Attack, attack, forward. I grabbed the handset for the PRC-25 radio, my fingers fumbling with it, slick with sweat and grime, my heart trying to beat its way out of my ribcage like a trapped bird. Alpha 1, Alpha 1. This is 3 actual. Contact, contact. We're attacking heavy fire, mortar and automatic weapons, southwest perimeter. Estimate company strength, maybe more. Requesting immediate illumination and artillery support. Danger close. I say again, danger close. God damn it. Over. My voice sounded like a stranger's, high and tight and shaky, like it belonged to some scared kid whose balls hadn't dropped yet. Which, I guess, wasn't far from the truth. Tracers, green ones mostly, their main calling card, were zipping past our heads, ripping through the air like angry green fireflies from hell, crisscrossing the darkness, painting deadly, fleeting lines from the jungle to us. Muzzle flashes blinked all along the tree line, hundreds of them, it seemed, winking like malevolent eyes in the pitch black, each wink a potential death sentence. Little dark figures, low and fast, were moving out there, detaching from the deeper blackness of the jungle, swarming towards our concertina wire like ants to a spilled goddamn sugar bowl. These weren't just a few snipers trying to spook us, trying to keep us awake and miserable. This was a full-blown, coordinated assault. They knew where we were. They knew we were relatively green, and they were coming to wipe us off that damn hell and send us home in body bags. Sergeant Peterson was already up. God bless his tough old hide, bellowing orders, his voice somehow cutting through the god-awful cacophony of battle. He was moving from hole to hole, a shadow among shadows, slapping shoulders, kicking asses, a profane angel of war. Hold your positions, Marines. Fire discipline? God damn it. Pick your targets. Don't waste ammo on shadows. Make every round count. Don't let em through the wire. Miller, you sorry sack of Iowa corn. Get that damn 60 talking. Pour it on him, son. Give him hell. Miller was wrestling with his M60 machine gun, That heavy pig, cursing a blue streak that would have made a sailor blush, his face a mask of frustration and fear in the strobing light of the explosions and the eerie, descending parachute flares that were starting to pop overhead, bathing the scene in a ghastly greenish-white light. "God damn it, Sarge, it's jammed. This piece of shit is jammed. Come on, you stubborn bastard, feed. Feed, you mother." The 60, our best hope for laying down a wall of impenetrable lead, for stopping them cold in their tracks, was out of action at the worst possible goddamn moment. Murphy's Law of Combat, Section 1, Paragraph A. If it can go wrong, it will, and usually when it'll hurt the most. I saw a group of them, maybe 5 or 6 VC, shadows detaching from the greater darkness, hit a section of our concertina wire not 20 yards from my hole. They weren't hesitating, weren't probing for weaknesses like you'd expect. They were just throwing themselves at it, maybe with Bangalore torpedoes tucked under their arms, or just trying to cut through or bull their way over with sheer numbers and a kind of desperate, suicidal courage that I couldn't comprehend then and still struggle with now. I raised my M14, the stock slick in my grip, sighted down the barrel at the fleeting, leaping shapes, took what I hoped was a steadying breath, and squeezed the trigger. Pop, pop, pop. The rifle bucked against my shoulder, a familiar, almost comforting recoil in the midst of the madness. One of them went down, a dark shape that just collapsed, folded up like a broken toy. No sound, just gone. The others scattered for a split second, like roaches when you turn on the light, then came on again, relentless. Jesus H. Christ, they were determined. Like a tide of shadows, you felt like you couldn't stop them. Garcia, in the hole next to me, let out a yelp, a sharp, sudden pain-filled sound that cut through the roar of battle. "Mac! Mac, I'm hit! God, I'm hit! My arm! They got my arm!" I risked a glance, a stupid move, but he was my squad mate. Flares were popping overhead now, requested by Peterson before he. Well, before. They cast long, dancing, eerie shadows, making the battlefield look like something out of a nightmare. A landscape from Dante's Inferno. In that flickering, ghostly light, I saw blood seep in dark and fast through his left sleeve, just above the elbow. A lot of it. How bad, Garcia? Talk to me, kid. Can you move it? Don't know. Burns like a son of Avich. Oh, Christ, Mac. It hurts. It hurts bad. He cried, his voice thin and reedy, his face a pale, terrified mask in the strobing light. The tough guy bravado he sometimes tried to put on was gone, stripped away by pain and terror, replaced by the stark, primal fear of a wounded boy a long way from his mama in Arizona. Pressure on it, kid. Use your right hand. Keep pressure on it. Stay down. Don't you dare stick your goddamn head up. I yelled back, my voice hoarse, already raw from shouting over the din. Then I had to turn my attention back to the figures still coming, still pouring out of the jungle like a nightmare made real, flowing over and through the wire in places. It was like trying to stop a tsunami with a damn whisk broom. They were everywhere. More flares went up, bathing the scene in that hideous greenish-white light, making the muzzle flashes from their AKs seem even brighter, the shadows deeper and more menacing. A grenade, one of theirs, a chicken, a little potato masher-looking thing, landed with a sickening thud just a few feet from Miller's position as he was still frantically working on that jammed M60, pounding on the receiver. He screamed, a raw animal sound of pure terror and agony, and threw himself sideways, tumbling into the bottom of the foxhole, trying to make himself part of the earth, just as it went off. The concussion stole, punched the air from I thought I was deaf. My ears shrieked, high-pitched, unheard whine blotted out the smoke was chilling. Thick and oily, sweet, metallic, powder that clung to the back of your throat. Men were screaming, ours and theirs. The sounds, God, the sounds. Shouts in English, shouts in Vietnamese. Curses that would make a devil blush. Prayers to any god that might be listening, whispered or shrieked. The crack and roar of rifles, the heavier thump-thump of our M79 grenade launchers, our bloop guns, trying to break up their assaults, sending 40mm grenades into their ranks. And always, the demonic, high-pitched, unstoppable chatter of the AKs. It was pure, unadulterated, terrifying chaos. No neat lines like in the John Wayne movies. No heroes striking poses for the camera. Just noise, confusion, blinding flashes of light, choking smoke, screams of pain and fury, and the gut-wrenching, ice-cold fear that you were about to die a violent, lonely, pointless death in this god-forsaken patch of red dirt so far from home. I saw Peterson. Bless his tough old NCO heart. He was standing exposed, halfway out of his command post foxhole, no helmet, his face grim and set, firing his grease gun, that old M3 submachine gun from wars past, probably Korea, in short control bursts, directing fire, pointing, yelling, rallying the men who were still on their feet. He was a rock in that storm, a damn lighthouse in the middle of a hurricane of shit and steel. His presence, his voice, it was the only thing holding our little section of the line together. The only thing keeping us from breaking and running like scared rabbits. Then, in the flickering, hellish light of yet another goddamn flare, I saw him jerk, kinda surprised-like, his head snapping back as if he'd been slapped. He staggered, put a hand to his chest as if to swat a bothersome fly, a look of utter astonishment on his face. And then he slowly, almost gracefully, crumpled to the ground like a marionette with its strings suddenly, irrevocably cut. "Sergeant!" I screamed it, my voice raw, cracking, ripping from my throat. But it was lost in the din, a tiny whisper in a hurricane of noise. A cold dread, colder than any fear I'd felt so far, colder than the sweat drenching my body, colder than the grave washed over me. If Peterson was down, if he was down, our anchor, our Iron Man, what chance in hell did the rest of us greenhorns have? It felt like an eternity, that fight in the dark, under the sickly, swaying light of the parachute flares. But it was probably only minutes, maybe an hour that stretched and distorted time until it was meaningless, elastic. We were taking casualties, bad ones. I could hear the corpsmen yelling, their voices strained with desperation, calling for plasma, for morphine, for somebody, anybody, to help stop the bleeding. The VC were getting closer, some of them already inside the wire in places, tangled up in it, still firing, still coming. Their faces contorted in what looked like hate or desperation, or maybe both. We were fighting for our very lives now, hand to muddy, bloody hand in some spots. I just kept firing, slamming in a fresh magazine, firing again. Squeeze, don't jerk. Aim center mass, sight picture, breath control, trigger squeeze. Didn't think, just reacted. The training kicked in, all those hours on the range, all those drills. It was muscle memory now, but it was more than that. It was primal. Kill or be killed. That simple. That terrible. That was the only law on Nui Than that night. The only commandment. Then, a new sound. A deeper roar. A rumble that vibrated up through the solace of your boots, through the very ground itself, shaking your teeth. The clank and squeal of heavy treads. Our tanks, M48 Pattons, bless their armored hides, came lumbering up from the rear like prehistoric beasts woken from a long, angry sleep, their big 90mm guns belching fire and smoke, sending high explosive shells screaming into the tree line with devastating effect. And the M2 South, the 50 cals mounted on M and in the few fortified bunkers we had managed to complete, opened up their deadly chorus. Thump, 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 thump. Their heavy slugs, like angry hornets the size of your thumb, tore through the night like vengeful gods, ripping through trees, through earth, through bodies, anything in their path with a sound like ripping canvas. That changed the tune, all right. The sheer volume of our firepower, suddenly massively increased, started to tell. The VC assault, as fierce and determined as it was, as fanatical as they seemed in their willingness to die, began to falter, to break against that wall of steel. They'd hit us hard, hit us fast, with a kind of suicidal courage I'd never imagined existed. But they hadn't counted on that kind of heavy metal rolling up, enjoying the party. The fighting went on for hours more, though, ebbing and flowing like a poisoned, bloody tide. They'd pull back under the heavy fire, melt into the darkness of the jungle to regroup, lick their wounds, maybe drag off their dead and wounded, and then, almost certainly, hit us from another direction. Another perceived weak spot. Smart. Tenacious. They didn't give up easy, those little bastards. I'll give them that. They were fighting for their country too, in their own way. But as the sky in the east, beyond the ravaged tree line, started to turn that sick pre-dawn gray, that washed out, hopeless color that signals the end of a long, terrible night, the fire slackened. The screams became less frequent. The explosions dwindled. And then, almost as quickly as it began, it was over. They melted back into the jungle. Gone, like phantoms in the morning mist, leaving only their dead and their hate behind. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It was heavy, oppressive, suffocating, full of what had just happened, full of the ghosts of the dead and the echoes of the dying. The cicadas, incredibly, unbelievably, started their goddamn buzzing again, oblivious, uncaring, as if nothing had disturbed their nightly serenade. As the light grew, a pale, weak, indifferent sun filtering through the lingering smoke and haze, we started to see the cost, the butcher's bill. Our perimeter was a wreck. Foxholes smashed by mortar, sandbags ripped open, their red guts spilled onto the ground like entrails. The concertina wire was torn apart, flattened in places, festooned with bits of cloth, flesh, and God knows what else. And the bodies, Christ, the bodies, ours and theirs, just sprawled out, twisted into unnatural, grotesque shapes, like broken dolls discarded by a cruel, careless child after a particularly nasty game. The stink of it. God, the stink. Blood, a coppery, metallic tang that coated your tongue and filled your nostrils. Piss, shit, burnt powder, diesel fumes from the tanks. The sweet, cloying, unforgettable smell of death. It gets in your nostrils, and it stays there. Forever. I can smell it now. Clear as day. Just thinking about it. I found Miller sitting by his M60, which he'd finally gotten unjammed towards the very end of the fight. Too late to do much good. He was just staring into space, his face covered in grime, dried blood. Not his, I prayed, and God knows what else. He looked 100 years old, his eyes hollow, vacant. The Joker, the Iowa farm boy, was gone. Something else, something broken and old, was sitting there in his place. Peterson, he mumbled, his voice hoarse, cracked, barely a whisper. I got Peterson, Mac. Right through the chest. Saw him go down. Never knew what hit him. His shoulders slumped. I didn't need him to tell me. I'd seen it with my own eyes. But hearing it out loud from Miller, it made it real in a way watching it happen in the chaos hadn't, if that makes any sense. I walked over to where the skipper, Sergeant Peterson, had fallen. Some of the guys, the ones still able to function, had laid a poncho over him. A small kindness in a landscape of brutality. I didn't need to look, I knew. A rock or anchor, the man who was supposed to get us through this, was gone. His face, usually so hard, so set in those stern, unforgiving lines, had looked strangely peaceful in that last fleeting instant before the light left his eyes. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Garcia was being helped by a corpsman, his arm bandaged up tight, his face chalky white, but he was alive, gritting his teeth against the pain. He just looked at me when I passed, his eyes empty, haunted. The bravado, the boyish fear, all of it was gone, replaced by nothing, just a blank, stunned emptiness. That was almost scarier than the fear. That was the look of a soul that had seen too much, too soon. We were a sorry-looking bunch, those of us who could still walk, anyway. Filthy, soaked in sweat and mud and blood, utterly exhausted, shocked into a kind of numb disbelief. That fresh-faced, cocky confidence we'd landed with just a few weeks before. Blown to hell right along with the sandbags and the wire and the bodies of our friends and the enemy. We'd seen the elephant, all right? And it had stomped all over us, ground us into the red dirt of Nui Than, and left us broken. I picked up my M14. It felt impossibly heavy, alien in my hands, like it belonged to someone else, some other, harder man I didn't yet know. I looked out at the tree line where they'd disappeared, that impenetrable, indifferent wall of green that had birthed so much death and suffering. Who were they? Farmers by day, fighters by night? What made them so willing to die like that, charging into machine guns and concertina wire with such fanaticism? What drove them to such lengths? I didn't have any answers then, and I don't have many more now, even after all these years. All I knew for sure was that in the space of a few brutal, terrifying hours, I'd gone from being a boy, a green recruit full of piss and vinegar and naive notions of heroism, to something else. Something harder, colder, emptier. A part of me, the innocent part, the part that believed in John Wayne movies and clear-cut good versus evil. That part died on that damn hill, alongside Sergeant Peterson and the other good men we lost that night, and alongside the men we killed. Nui Than. That was just the start, of course. Just the overture to a long, bloody, insane opera that played out for years. There were a lot more patrols after that, a hell of a lot more firefights, a lot more names added to my personal, ever-growing list of ghosts that walk with me. Bigger battles, smaller skirmishes, ambush that came out of nowhere like a striking snake. Sweeps through villages that made you sick to your stomach with what you saw and sometimes what you had to do. Operations with fancy, meaningless names that meant nothing to the grunts on the ground, except more humping, more fear, more chances to die or to watch your friends die. I remember once, suiting up to go out, I was near a 155mm artillery shell that had been rigged as a booby trap. If I'd taken one more step, then lifted my foot, I'd have been vaporized. Just gone. My buddy behind me, Warren Brayton, sharp eyes, he spotted the wire just in time. Saved my ass. They blew it in place later, and the crater had left. I could just picture my guts decorating the trees like goddamn Christmas tinsel. Another friend, Robert Anthony Bai, wasn't so lucky. He stepped on one of those 155s. They sent him home in what was basically a large envelope. Just pieces. Then there was the fight at Liberty Bridge, March 19th, 69. We'd just come in from the bush, thinking we were going to get some hot chow from a real mess hall, maybe even a flush toilet. Felt like heaven after weeks of comrades and digging cathals. Then around 0200, VA regulars hit us. Not VC. These were the hardcore main force. They used Bangalore torpedoes to blow holes in the wire, and then they came through with flamethrowers. First time I'd seen those. The bunker next to mine just whoosh, incinerated. The guys inside cooked. Later, around 0500, me and another Marine pulled our corpsman, Doc Hammond, out of a collapsed fighting hole. He'd been shot in the head. As we lifted him, his brains just spilled out onto my bare feet. I was barefoot trying to air out my jungle rot. Funny the details that stick with you, ain't it? I just looked up at the smoke-filled sky and thought, I gotta get out of this damn country. Later that morning, maybe 0900 or 1000, the fight finally over, I sat down, starving, and unwrapped one of those crappy chocolate bars we had. So bad they named them that. Not 15 feet away was what was left of an NVA sapper a tank had run over. Just a pile of meat with a thumb sticking out. And there I sat, eating my chocolate, cold as ice. All I could think was, glad it was you, not me, pal. That's what war does. It strips you down to the bone, to the raw survival instinct. And February 22nd, another day seared in my memory. We were on patrol, crossed the stream, maybe waist deep. Captain sent me to check out a little hooch on the other side. I cleared it, nothing, came back out to report. Broke rule number 1. Got too close to the skipper in the open. Then I spotted it, a little homemade antenna on the front of the hooch we hadn't seen from our approach. Broke rule number 2. I pointed. Never point in the field. The second my finger went up, all hell broke loose. AK fire from everywhere. A round sliced my pack strap, right across my chest, missed my heart by inches. Another one grazed my neck, still got the scar. 3 more slammed into my shoulder, spun me around like a damn top. Captain got hit too, bad, in the chest. I crawled into a ditch, trying to avoid the punji sticks I knew were probably there. Yelled for the corpsman. When he got to me, I told him, forget me. Get the captain. Watching him work on the skipper out in the open, I couldn't take it. I screamed for Daryl, our ammo bearer. He yelled back, can't. Got a prisoner. I screamed, waste him. Get over here now. A few seconds later, Daryl came running, the look on his face. He'd just killed a man up close for the first time, probably with his K-bar. He started pulling the captain, and they opened up again. Daryl took 3 rounds in his right thigh. I crawled out, dragged him clear, started slapping field dressings on him, trying to stop the bleeding. Sang him stupid marching cadences, anything to keep him conscious while we waited for a bird that wasn't coming. Finally, a gunship, not a medevac, just a gunship that hovered. Threw Daryl on my shoulder, carried him out there, dropped my helmet and glasses in the mud, didn't care, just heaved him onto the chopper and jumped on after him. That tour got extended 4 days because I was AWOL, getting new glasses and checking on Daryl. The wounds, I collected a few. Shrapnel in my left leg from one blast, another piece in my belly from something else. Mild concussion when a grenade went off too close behind me. Took a trip to the hospital in Da Nang. Even met Jimmy Stewart there, the actor. He was visiting the wounded with his wife, asked me in that famous stammer of his, son, well, where are you hit? And the nightmares, the walking in my sleep? Yeah, I got plenty of that too. One time, back in the world, I woke up screaming that they're all over us. They're everywhere. My mom, my sister, even my dog, Duke, were all standing by the bed looking at me like I'd lost my damn mind. For years, I'd find myself sleeping in weird places, behind the couch, no clothes on. It wasn't until years later, after 9/11s, that I really started to deal with what they now call PTSD. When I finally came home for good, it wasn't to ticker tape parades. Landed at the airport, had to wear our dress uniforms. Walked into a crowd of protesters, screaming at us, calling us baby killers, some even spitting. MPs on either side, warning us if we retaliated, we'd end up in the brig. Even back in my hometown, folks would sneer, curse me under their breath. I packed that uniform away in a trunk and didn't open it for 40 years. That first one, Nui Than, that's the one that branded me deep. That's the one that burned itself into my soul when I was still too young to understand what was happening. Too young to have the words for it. It taught me what war really was. Not the glorious adventure some folks back home still imagined. Not the John Wayne gung-ho bullshit we've been fed in basic training. But the dirt, the blood, the shit, the sheer, pants-pissing, bowel-loosening terror And the cold, hard, undeniable fact that the guy trying to kill you is just as scared and just as determined as you are. And he's probably got a mother and maybe a girl and dreams of his own back in some village you'll never see. A life you're going to extinguish is yours. That's the only thing. 60 years. And I can still smell the gun. I can still hear the screams. Whether you want M2 or not. Well, there it is. The long version. More than you asked for, I reckon, and maybe more than you wanted to hear. But some stories, they don't come in neat little packages, all tied up with a pretty bow. They come covered in mud and blood and the ghosts of young men. My only hope these days is that the world can somehow find its way past all this hate and killing. Despite everything, I count myself lucky to be here, to have found some peace. It breaks my heart to hear about so many vets from my war and the ones since who couldn't find their way out of the darkness. If I could tell them anything, I'd say, try to let it go. Trust in something bigger than yourself. Just relax. It'll be okay, somehow. Easier said than done. I know. Easier said than done.